Technonauts is a podcast that deep dives into digital transformation, startups, and technology. Hosted by AI hosts Ted and Samantha, Technonauts helps startup founders and mid-sized business owners navigate the world of technopreneurship. Episode 6: Revolutionizing Business Models Through Technology.
All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of business models.
Business models.
Yeah, you know how companies actually make money. And with all the crazy tech coming out these days, the game is changing fast.
It really is fascinating stuff.
It is. And you know what? We've got some really interesting sources lined up for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
We're going to be checking out this presentation from Professor Arup Maity. He's got some really interesting takes on business models.
Awesome. Love that guy.
Yeah. And we're also going to be looking at this AI software platform called Xamin.
AI. Very cool.
Yeah, it's wild. And get this, we're even going to unpack this whole concept of the unbundled corporation.
Okay, I am intrigued.
Right. Trust me, by the end of this deep dive, you'll be able to talk business models like a seasoned pro. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take it back to the basics. So imagine you're starting a business from scratch. What's the first thing you need to figure out?
Well, Professor Maity is all about understanding your customers' needs. He talks about this idea of jobs to be done, from Clayton Christensen's work.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. It's like people don't just buy products, they're hiring them to solve a problem.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have a cool product. You got to figure out what job it does for your customer. What need does it fulfill?
So it's like, I'm not just buying this fancy coffee maker. I'm hiring it to make me feel like a barista every morning, right?
There you go. And Professor Maity connects this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that whole pyramid thing.
Oh, yeah, with the basic needs at the bottom, like food and shelter, and then the more complex needs like self-actualization at the top.
Exactly. So Maity's point is you need to figure out where your product fits into that pyramid for your target customer.
That makes sense. So are you selling a basic need, or are you selling something more aspirational, more emotion-driven?
Right, because that totally changes your marketing strategy and how you position your whole business.
It's all about that perceived value, right? And speaking of value, Professor Maity talks about this total value equation, which seems way more complex than just like putting a price tag on something.
Oh, absolutely. He says the price is just one small part of the equation. It's more about how the customer perceives the value.
So it's about more than just the money.
Way more. Maity breaks it down into things like monetary utility, of course, but also the social image associated with the product, the effort a customer might need to put in to use it, even potential downsides like shame or uncertainty.
So like that luxury watch might cost a fortune, but its perceived value is through the roof because it makes a statement. But then when I'm at the grocery store comparing brands of like peanut butter, I'm definitely thinking more about the price and how it tastes, not so much about social status.
Exactly. And understanding this whole equation, this perceived value thing, is super important for attracting your ideal customers and creating a business model that actually works.
Okay, so understanding our customers, that's step one. But then Professor Maity throws us this curveball, the unbundled corporation. It's like he took a perfectly good company and just pulled it apart.
It sounds kind of crazy at first, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Okay, walk me through it.
So picture this. You take a traditional company with all its different departments, marketing, sales, product development, and you break it up into these smaller, independent businesses.
So instead of one big company trying to do everything.
Exactly. Each of these smaller businesses focuses on one specific thing. Professor Maity talks about three main types: customer relationship businesses, product innovation businesses, and infrastructure businesses.
All right, I need a real-world example here. Give me something I can wrap my head around.
Okay, how about Amazon? They started with the online store.
Sure, everybody knows Amazon.
But think about it. They've also got Amazon Prime for their loyal customers. Then there's Amazon Web Services, that's AWS, for cloud computing. And don't forget about Amazon Marketplace, where they connect buyers and sellers.
Wow, so it's like they created this whole Amazon universe. Each part of it is like its own separate business.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of unbundling. Companies can be more flexible, more responsive to the market. It lets them move faster.
That's really interesting. So what other companies are doing this?
Well, Airbnb is a perfect example. They basically unbundled the entire hotel industry.
Yeah, because they don't actually own any properties, right? They just connect people who have a place to rent with people who need a place to stay.
You got it. And this whole unbundling thing, it's actually connected to another big idea that Professor Maity brings up, the long tail. It's this idea that in the digital world, you don't have to appeal to everyone to be successful.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to create these blockbuster products that everyone wants, you can focus on these niche interests, right?
Exactly. Like, think about Spotify or Netflix. They can offer this massive library of content, and they can still be profitable because they have access to this global audience.
That makes sense. It's a win-win, really.
Yeah.
Consumers get more choices, creators get more exposure. It's amazing how technology has changed everything.
It really has. And speaking of changing the game, Professor Maity throws another curveball our way. He talks about free as a business model.
Wait, free, as in like giving stuff away for free. How does that make money?
I know it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But he has some really interesting examples. Like, he talks about how some nightclubs in LA get bands to play for free.
Really? Why would bands do that?
Because for a new band, getting that kind of exposure, it's more valuable than getting paid a small fee.
Ah, that makes sense. It's about getting their name out there, building a following.
Exactly. It's a win-win. And
Yeah.
he even brings up doctors in ancient China. Can you believe that? They were paid when people were healthy.
Wow, so it was like they were incentivized to keep people from getting sick in the first place. That's wild.
Right. It's a totally different way of thinking about value and payment. It's not that the service is actually free. It's just that the business model is structured around a different kind of exchange.
So maybe free isn't as crazy as it sounds. It's more about finding a creative way to get paid for the value you're providing.
Now you're getting it.
Seriously, my mind is blown. We started with figuring out what customers really need, then dove into this whole unbundled corporation thing, and now we're talking about business models based on free. This is a lot to process.
And we're not quite done yet. Professor Maity goes on to talk about something else that's huge. Platforms, especially digital platforms. Like, remember that AI software platform you mentioned, Zaman?
Oh, right, Salmon. It's all coming together now. But first things first, break down these platform business models for me. What makes them different?
Well, it's all about connections. Platforms connect different groups of users. Think buyers and sellers, or creators and fans.
Okay, so they're kind of like the middleman.
Yeah, but they're not really creating the content or the product. It's more about providing the space and the tools for others to do their thing.
So like going back to Airbnb, they created this whole platform for people to rent out their places,
Yeah.
but they don't actually own any of the properties themselves.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful things about platform businesses is something called network effects.
Network effects. All right, I'm going to need you to explain that one.
So basically, the more people use a platform, the more valuable it becomes for everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, Facebook wouldn't be that useful if only a handful of people used it.
Exactly. But with millions of users, suddenly it's this whole different ballgame.
Right, more connections, more sharing, more opportunities for everyone.
Precisely. And this is where Zaman comes in. They're leveraging this whole platform idea, this network effect thing, to shake things up in the world of software development.
So instead of companies having to, like, build their software from the ground up, they can use Xamarin to connect with developers and AI tools.
You got it. It's like they've created this whole marketplace where businesses can go to get their software developed faster and more efficiently. They've even got AI helping with the design and planning stages.
Wow, it's incredible how technology is changing everything. What's next? Who knows?
Who knows, indeed. Professor Maity definitely gave us a lot to think about.
He really did. This whole deep dive has been full of aha moments. We've covered so much ground, from figuring out what customers want to rethinking the very idea of a company. And who can forget about free? Turns out, sometimes giving something away can be a great business strategy.
It's all about finding that creative spark.
Exactly. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but listeners, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these new business models? What other innovative companies are out there shaking things up? Hit us up on social media and let us know. Until next time, keep those entrepreneurial spirits high and those business ideas flowing.
Technonauts is available on Spotify and YouTube. For more information, visit Technonauts on Facebook.